Hey, happy post-Thanksgiving to you and yours. We hope you enjoyed the turkey. A little R&R. All gas, though, here on this Black Friday edition of the Gauer Hour. Rob, Joyce, Megan Gauer. A lot to get to since we've last spoken. It seems like a lifetime ago. Notre Dame and UCLA picked up monster wins last weekend. South Carolina's win streak is no more. They rebounded nicely, you could say, yesterday. A lot of MTEs. You probably haven't seen them. They've looked entertaining based on the box scores. Unless you have Baller TV, whatever that is, or Flow Sports, and then you have 4 or 5 days to cool off, get regathered because ACC, SEC Challenge next week loaded. So Thursday, so many games next Thursday, highlighted by Texas, Notre Dame, and South Bend. Megan, how was Thanksgiving?
It was good, and I'm also one of those people that pays for Flow Sports, so I have watched some of these MTEs.
I mean, we all don't roll in money, and we can't afford $30 a month for match streams.
It is insane, especially for the quality of content.
I saw a thing of the starting lineup for the Ole Miss Rebels. You know, the score bugs don't work. It's good for you. To paraphrase the great Skim Mulkey on Twitter, I'm not doing it. There was someone who may or may not have been streaming Flow Sports on YouTube. I don't know what their names are. I'm not a snitch. I'm not going to call them out. So I watched more games than I otherwise would have. But yeah, I can't do it. Give me the Thanksgiving breakdown. What's on your plate? What's the ratio of your plate? How many plates?
I did 1 plate, but 2 helpings on 1 plate. Lots of beige carbs, as my sister and I like to say. It's a beige carb holiday. But my favorite thing that we make at Thanksgiving is it's like a sliced butternut squash with sliced apples, all in like maple syrup and cinnamon. And it's basically like vegetables, but a dessert, and it's delicious.
I mean, it's healthy. It's vegetables.
Yeah.
And apples. Yeah. White meat, dark meat?
White meat.
White meat. Okay. Stuffed mushrooms, how'd they come out?
They were good.
Okay, I do an apple almond stuffing. That's mine. Otherwise, good. Basic. It always looks gross, but ever since I was a kid, I like the canned cranberry. And it feels like you're eating dog food when you look at the shape. But that's a guilty pleasure. Black Friday, any deals? Were you up at like 5 a.m.? Were you busting down a door?
No, I can't deal with the people. I literally my like Christmas people. Sure, I'll shop them from my couch.
I'm wearing my Logan Nisley Nebraska shirt, so Black Friday I'm always looking for a deal. If you want me to wear your school, I will not pay for it, but DM me on Twitter or Blue Sky, and you can send me whatever you want. And there are only 4 schools I will not wear. I will not name the schools. I lied. I will name Stony Brook. I will not wear Stony Brook, go Hofstra. But yes, if you want to send me your school for free, I will gladly wear it. That is my Black Friday offer to everyone. Want to talk some hoops?
Yeah, let's talk some
hoops. Where you want to start? Do you want to go all the way back to last week? We can go, kind of.
Let's go all the way back. It feels like we must start with like the 2 big ones.
Yes. My takeaway from last Saturday, which I held this opinion for about 24 hours. I thought Notre Dame might be the best team in the country. They're 1 or 2, I think, right now, based on how they went into USC and ran away with things.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the showing by my Notre Dame in this game. And I'm sure we're going to talk about Olivia Miles and Hannah Hidalgo a lot here. But I think, at least in the first half of this game, the thing that stood out to me the most was Sonia Citron's defense on Juju Watkins. I thought that was just so impressive. She had her really, really struggling in the first half, and as much as Miles and Hidalgo's scoring was kind of the headline from this one, I think that's what stood out to me about this Notre Dame team the most in this one was the defense.
I think because Miles was so good when she was a freshman, and then obviously last year, even without Miles, Hidalgo just stormed onto the scene. So those two, rightfully so, take the headlines. But Citron she's been there for years now. Quietly, like last year, she scored a quiet almost 17 points a game or something like that. And she's not going to be the number 1 there, probably as long as she's at Notre Dame, because of just the sheer capabilities of what Miles and Hidalgo can do. Not even scoring, just everything else. Assists, rebounds, steals, you name it. But she's just the quiet X factor almost for this team.
Yeah, when we talk about this backcourt and how good it is, it's Hidalgo and Miles, but it's really Hidalgo, Miles, and Citron. And I think she gets overlooked, but you're right. She is the X factor for this team. And like the fact that they have 3 players at that level in the backcourt, I think is what makes them so impressive right now. Like the front court held its own, but the backcourt is what won the game.
I think what makes up for their front court are these the best rebounding guards in the country?
That too.
Was tiny, and she got like 6-7 rebounds. Miles, obviously, she's always, a triple-double threat waiting to happen. The Atu King at 8 rebounds. Like we've talked a lot. They have a big freshman in Kate Koval, and then we're waiting for Maddie Westbeld to come back. But it feels like, something that gets overlooked is, sure, they're not as big as some teams, but their guards get after the ball.
Yeah, exactly. I think that helps a lot because their guards are so athletic. And I mean, Olivia Miles has a good height to her as well in terms of being able to get in there and get rebounds against front court players on some teams. So I think that makes the difference here is like the front court, if the guards can get rebounds like that, the front court doesn't have to step up as much, which is important when you're missing Maddie Westbald. And I mean, Liza Carlin's still on that bench too, another player that's probably going to contribute for this team.
I have a statement on November 29th. As of November 29th, nothing to do with their prospective pro careers or what they have done last year. Right now, the best sophomore in the country plays in South Bend, Indiana. Hannah Hidalgo, I think, is playing. She might be the best player in the country right now. She's certainly 1A or 1B. Best player in the country right now, November 29th. I think she's that good.
Yeah, no, she's been fantastic for this team. I mean, her showing in this game, 24 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists, 5 steals. Like the numbers are just crazy. Like those are the kind of numbers that people are usually putting up against like XYZ school that you've never heard of, not USC.
On the road at USC.
Yeah.
I will say, so USC rebounded yesterday, Wednesday. Nice win over Seton Hall, took care of business. Thursday, Wednesday, whatever day it was, 2 days ago. That was how I think I want USC to play. Obviously, the opponent was overmatched, so the scoring is going to be a little more balanced. This can't be the Juju show.
Yeah.
And I think in these bigger games, going back, last year's team, you understand a little more of why. They have so many more weapons this year. Right now, she's not playing well enough for it to be the Juju Watkins show. 25 shots a game, too many with what they have. I think the ball's going to be in her hands. Like there are plenty of other weapons here, but Wednesday, 20 points, 7 of 13 shooting. That's what I want to see right now.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think particularly like the 25 shots that are only generating 24 points. Like if she's scoring 40 points on those 25 shots, go for it. But
sure,
I do think that, either she has to be more efficient with those 25 shots and more likely the second option, which is she needs to be taking shots because there's too many weapons on this team.
Right. I saw a tweet that was about some aggregator that tried to set me off, and it worked. Bragged about her 25 points, and they listed her stat line, 10 of 25 shooting. Didn't mention the 5 turnovers.
Yeah.
Well, 8 of those 25 points came in garbage time when her team was down 21 points.
Right.
When the game was quote-unquote in doubt, she had 17 points on 6 of 20 shooting. Since the start of the postseason last year, going into the Seton Hall game, she had average sub 40% shooting. Wednesday was her first game above 50% shooting since the last regular season. She's sub 25% from three-point range with more turnovers than assists. Probably the first time in her life that she's in some semblance of a slump. And the Trojans just need to adjust, which I think Wednesday started to kind of balance back a little bit. Like, what are they doing with Kiki Iriafen? Because I'm not sure they know. Like, I'm getting a lot of LSU vibes. So many LSU vibes from last year. It's still early, of course, but it's just shouting at me in the face. This could be last year's LSU team. That just never quite puts it together.
Yeah, and has that big player that like they don't quite figure out how to use. Just kind of like LSU never really figured out how to use Haley Vinlith effectively last year. Like you said, it's still early, but yeah, they got to find a way to get Kiki more involved.
Attendance of 7,800 and Galen Center holds over 10,000. Great that Snoop Dogg was there.
That was great. The outfit was also great.
Yes, but also, and this isn't, this is not a calling out the program at all. I'm calling out the fans. That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
The top 10 showdown on a Saturday when there's your football team sucks. Pack the place. Come on. They're good. Sunday, I thought Notre Dame was the best team in the country, and then I saw what UCLA did to South Carolina. So obviously UCLA is not going to play like that 40 minutes every game for 38, 39 games. their best is probably anyone's best. If they play like that, they're not getting beaten.
Yeah, I agree. This was the most complete game we've seen this team play in any of these recent years where they've had the talent to be this good. And like you said, like this isn't going to happen every game, right? Like London Jones is not going to go 5 for 5 from 3 every game. And some of the things that have been done against South Carolina and the things you need to happen to beat South Carolina in the way that they did aren't going to happen every game. But this team is really, really good. And I think the thing in this one that stood out to me the most is I think Lauren Betts looked like the best player on the floor. And I think that's the key for UCLA is like she has that All-American level ceiling. And can you keep unlocking that?
And she did it a lot like we're used to South Carolina forwards doing it since Aaliyah Boston was a freshman. She did it without scoring 30 points, 25 points. Like she was dominant without needing to put the ball in the hoop.
Yeah, exactly. It was her dominance on the glass, on the defensive end, 4 blocks. Like she scored, 11 points. Like it was fine, but it was everywhere else that she kind of made her presence known.
Honestly, the biggest growth is this new inside-outside threat where with the ball in her hand, she's able to dish it. Mm-hmm. And with this newfound outside shooting that really wasn't there last year, at least consistently. I mean, go back to the Sweet 16 game. They couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat. So they're rightfully number 1 right now, and they will be until proven otherwise. Gamecocks obviously rebounded nicely yesterday. We'll talk about what they did to poor Iowa State. Not as intimidating on the inside, frankly, anymore. Obviously, they are still. This qualifies for. They are for 355 teams in the country. Mm-hmm. What South Carolina is going for, obviously, they don't care about 355 teams. They care about, you need to beat the 5 or 6 in April. That's what it comes down to. And they're just not quite as intimidating as they used to be.
Agreed. And I do think it's going to get better, right? Like, Ashlyn Watkins is still just back by the team for 2 weeks now. Like, that's going to take some time, I think. And I think we saw what she can do last year. But I think it's just very clear that this team misses Camila Cardoso more than anyone thought they were going to miss Camila Cardoso. And, like, they don't have that consistent, dominant presence inside right now. And that's been so much of what South Carolina has been and why they've been so good for the last few years, in addition to many other things, their depth, etc. But that inside presence is, I think, what's made them very clearly like the dominant number 1 team in the country for the last however many years that they've kind of been the standard. And the guards are still playing well, right? Like you got a decent performance from Tahina Paopao in this game, a really good performance from Tessa Johnson, but they need the inside to step up some if they're going to be a title favorite. And I'm not saying that they're not right now. Like, I think there's plenty of time for them to figure it out, but I just think that's a glaring hole right now for this team.
I think the hole right now, which I was ready to make this argument, and then they went on a 29-3 run in the first quarter yesterday. I think they need to change that starting lineup. Slow start against Michigan, fine, you're good enough to overcome it. Slow start against Clemson, fine, you're good enough to overcome it. Slow start against UCLA, game wasn't over, but you were never in it.
Right.
And like you can't just limp out of the gates against UCLA, against Notre Dame, against Texas, against UConn. I don't know what's going on with Malaysia Fulwiley. She didn't play in the second half. Their best 5 is Raven Johnson, Tahina Paopao, Fulwiley or Tessa Johnson, Chloe Kitts, and Ashlyn Watkins. Can't control Watkins getting arrested, not getting resolved till game 2. But like Sanaya Fagan and Bree Hall, they're fine. They're frankly they're not good enough.
You're right.
To start. If South Carolina is going to keep getting off to these slow starts, they need some sort of change.
Yeah, I do agree. It feels like they need something to change at the start of these games. Because like you said, like as much as like this game looked like a blowout, like the second half wasn't that unevenly matched. It was, they just got absolutely buried in the first half of this game. And that's just too much to overcome and against a team of the caliber of UCLA.
Right, and try not to overreact to one game, but again,
right,
they trailed the entire first half against Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, 10 minutes against Clemson, that's fine. But Bree Hall, if you go back to last year, she has 1 double-digit game, 2, since the SEC tournament started. 10 against East Carolina, and she had 10 in the Elite 8 against Oregon State. She was 3 of 10 shooting. She doesn't really rebound. She distributes a little bit. If you're telling me that's more impactful than Tessa Johnson or Malaysia Fulwiley, no. And I get South Carolina's built on depth, so you want
Mm-hmm.
a spark coming off your bench. Well, you'll still have one in Johnson or Full-Wiley, or maybe Bree Hall's a spark off the bench. Sanaya Fagan has historically come off the bench. I think once Watkins is fully back to she can play however many minutes, and she's probably already there. I think eventually she'll start. But if you're going to nitpick South Carolina, again, the sun came up on Friday or Monday, whatever day after they lost, Monday. They are fine. They are still a national championship contender. One game doesn't change that.
Exactly.
If you're just looking to nitpick for a team that's really all you can do with South Carolina is nitpick. I think that's my nitpick. And then,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you said it last week. If they were to lose on Sunday, Iowa State picked a bad time. Boy,
a real bad time.
Real bad time. I will say, even if they were to have beaten UCLA, like Iowa State, I don't think it's that good.
No, I think we're seeing them come down to earth very quickly here.
Loss at Northern Iowa that wasn't competitive in the fourth. Needed basically a buzzer beater. It wasn't technically a buzzer beater. There was like less than a second left from Audie Crooks to beat Drake on Sunday.
Yeah, which Drake, good mid-major team, but if you're a top 15 team in the country, that game shouldn't be that hard.
Right. It's the same thing. On its standalone, if you lose at Northern Iowa, that's not good, but they're a good program. On its own, if you need a buzzer beater to beat Drake at home, that's fine. They're a good program. If you lose to South Carolina, there's absolutely no shame in losing to South Carolina. Put it all together of you lost by double digits, you needed a buzzer beater, and you lost by 40 when you didn't even hit 40. Too much too soon. Their defense stinks. And that's okay for right now. Is anyone in the Big 12 good? K-State, I'm not going to overreact to a loss to Duke. TCU, we'll see. They have some tough upcoming games. Everyone else in the Big 12 kind of stinks.
Yeah, I feel like this is like the same thing that happened last year, and it's just like they're getting exposed a little earlier, but it was like all those teams, they didn't like play anyone in the first few weeks of the season, and then they like all were like ranked super high, and then conference play happened, and they like all beat each other up, and like you were like none of these teams are actually all that good, and I feel like we're seeing the same thing again. Baylor last year had like they're just having their meltdown now instead of midway through the season like they did last year.
I wouldn't even call it a meltdown so much as they played two teams with a pulse, and they lost by 2 at Oregon, who turns out the Ducks maybe aren't top 25 good, and they lost by 8 against Indiana on a neutral floor. That's fine. Those are 2 fine losses. The problem is those are the only 2 tests that you've had, and you haven't passed either one.
Right.
If you look at the Big 12 right now, Oklahoma State is undefeated. I don't know if they've played anyone. West Virginia, forgot about West Virginia.
Yeah.
They haven't played anybody. And they don't play anyone. They head to Colorado around Christmas. They don't play a team that is currently in the top 25. Well, Iowa State may not be ranked on Monday, but they play Iowa State in January 19th. So let's say they fall out. They wouldn't play a ranked team until February 17th when they play Kansas State.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we'll learn anything about West Virginia. So I don't think the Big 12's very good. TCU could be okay. TCU has a game. We'll talk about that later. They play someone today.
Notre Dame?
They play Notre Dame. We'll learn a lot about TCU today. We'll talk about that later. Anything else from... let's talk about some of these MTs. We'll kind of bounce around. There's a lot going on. I don't know what games were where. We'll talk about Duke. How about the Blue Devils? The high-flying, scoring Blue Devils.
I am very impressed with what we've seen from Duke in this couple games because they won them without having to win them their way, and I think that's a big thing for this team. We're seeing them score the basketball. 109 points against Oklahoma, which I don't know if that says more about Duke or more about Oklahoma's defense. I'm not sure yet, but still
probably both.
Yeah, probably both. I don't think you could probably put Duke alone in the gym last year, and I don't know that they would score 109 points, but at the same time, Oklahoma's defense clearly has some work to do as well. That was a fun game, though.
That came after Duke beat Kansas State. That was a little more the way Duke likes to play. 30 from Ashlyn Jackson. She has double figures every game since the opener. They were 7 of 15 from 3 against the Wildcats. That brand of defense was there against K-State. They forced 18 turnovers. I know they lost at Maryland, which is fine. This is right now a top 10 team.
Yeah, I agree.
Trending up. Like if there's someone who I might put in that tier that we've been talking about, who's going to crack into that tier with all the top teams that we talk about every week, might be Duke right now.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm ready to go that far, but they are definitely trending in the right direction. I agree. They're 100% a top 10 team right now. I think they've played a lot of people and been able to kind of come out, aside from that Maryland game, which was a close loss. It's one loss. Like, you've now beaten Oklahoma, you've beaten Kansas State, you beat South Dakota State on the road. Like, that's a good win. I feel like they look pretty good, and we're going to see. We'll see how good they really are in a week?
Thursday.
Thursday, yeah.
We will talk about most of the ACC SEC challenge on Thursday.
Yeah.
There's lots of good games. South Carolina Duke it's not the most intriguing. There's a top 5 tilt in South Bend. That's number 2, far and away. Yeah. So nice weekend for Duke in the Bulldogs Classic. You could pay me $1 million. I could not tell you where the Bulldogs Classic was.
Yeah, probably somewhere in the Bahamas, or Florida. One of the two is usually a good guess.
Vegas. There are things in Vegas now. But...
Oh, yeah, that's true. Maybe that was Vegas. I don't know.
Other MTEs. LSU, another weird week. They needed a game winner to beat Washington 68-67. Kalen Gilbert, hero with 1 second left. Then they ran roughshod over NC State 82-65. I'm going to copy paste what I said about NC State last week. They don't have a front court, so until they do, they're not going to be very good against big teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's exactly what you thought would happen in that NC State game was what happened. Anissa Morrow had 20 points. They just had no answer for her.
Out-rebounded 44-24. They also trailed Southern for a while on Monday and then pulled away in the fourth quarter. So NC State's got a lot to figure out. I don't know if they have the personnel to figure it out. Nice weekend for Georgia Tech. I don't know if you caught that. They swept South Dakota State and Oregon. Ducks had a tough week 0-2. Georgia Tech and Michigan State, 2 teams we haven't really talked about. I think they're going to both be ranked come Monday.
Yeah, I think this was good wins for Georgia Tech for sure. I wasn't expecting it, to be honest, but I think it's good to see them get those wins. And yeah, I think a team to start keeping an eye on and see what they do as they get into some bigger games. But those are 2 nice wins.
South Dakota State now. What does an at-large resume look like if South Dakota State goes 18-0 in league play, and then they have a win over Oregon, they have a win over Creighton, and then close losses to Georgia Tech and Duke. So you're looking at they might be, 29-2 or 29-3. Like, is that early on? Is that good enough for a mid-major?
It might be. I think I'm looking at that Texas game. What are they going to do in that Texas game? I think that's coming is going to be a big thing. If they can play that Texas game, I don't think you have to win it. If you play it close, I think that helps them. It also is it's going to depend what happens elsewhere. It's so hard to say right now because I think, I don't know, the way things are going at the moment, I'm not convinced that some of these leagues are going to be we're going to put 12 teams in the tournament or whatever crazy things people were saying was going to happen.
Well, that's the thing that it's great that, Texas and Oklahoma join the SEC. You see this in football. That means someone loses more games.
Right. And I don't know. I just don't think you can put, and this is what we're going to see this year, but a team that's well below 500 in conference play and just beat a bunch of nobodies in the offseason, give me South Dakota as the at-large state as the at-large bid over that team.
Right. If you're looking at a mid-tier SEC team, let me pull up the SEC standings real quick. I'm just going to throw a dart. Say you're Auburn, and you go over against LSU, Kentucky, Texas, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Ole Miss, and you play 2 of them twice. Well, you're 0-8. And then, you're probably going to drop 1 or 2 more along the way. Maybe beat everyone else. But even if you beat everyone else, you're 9-8 in conference play but all your losses are quote unquote good. So I don't like it. It is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, that team probably gets in, but when you start talking about someone that's 7-10 and then are just 11-0 in their non-conference because they didn't play a single team, give me South Dakota State over that team any day.
Sure. Creighton, nice win over Syracuse by 1.5 billion points. Numbers approximate in Florida. Blue Jays are okay. I know I hit the panic button a couple weeks ago. They beat Nebraska, took care of business in Florida. I think they're fine if they take care of business against a down Big East. Tough one for the Big East yesterday. Harvard, nice win over St. John's. Crimson looking spicy now with an at-large.
I feel like we're not talking about this Harvard team enough. I think I've been impressed with them. Like, yes, they had that big win over Indiana that maybe doesn't look like as big of a win now, but I think they've been competing with a lot of good teams. And I think they're a team to keep an eye on for sure. Harmony Turner has just been fantastic. I just opened up their set. She's averaging over 20 a game. So that's impressive. I feel like she's going to be a player to keep an eye on. But they've built, aside from that loss to Quinnipiac, which was not a great loss.
It's a bad one. Like, 23 points on the road. It's a good program, but that's not going to look good on paper.
A pretty solid resume here. Like the St. John's win is a decent one. Illinois State is a decent win. A Northwestern win by 25. Indiana win. Boston College win. Like, Boston College isn't that good, but it's still an ACC team. Like, this resume is going to look pretty good come March.
Yeah, and they will play Princeton twice. They will play Columbia twice. I think everyone in the Ivy probably plays each other twice.
Yeah, I think so.
So, yeah, if you're looking at a multi-bid, well, we're not probably not multi-bid Ivy League unlike last year where Princeton and Columbia are both on the fringe. Harvard, though, could make it a two-bid league if they were to lose the conference tournament. I think that's right.
Yeah, I think they're making. Yeah, I think if Harvard wins the conference tournament, it's probably not a two-bid league, but if it's like Columbia beats Harvard in the Ivy championship, like Harvard's getting in if they take care of business mostly in the Ivy.
Yeah, so nice win for them. Big East just needs a win outside of UConn and Creighton. Yeah. St. John's had an opportunity, tough one. Speaking of the Big East, let's talk UConn. For the Huskies, thank goodness AZ Fudd looked like AZ Fudd for the first time she returned. Otherwise, that'd have been a massive meltdown against Ole Miss on Wednesday.
Yeah, that was I was like out Wednesday night, and I was like, watched the first half on my phone, and I was like, oh, they're up 20. We're not gonna pay attention. And then I got in the car, and I was like, what on earth happened in the last 7 minutes or whatever it was in the third quarter? But yeah, welcome back, AZ Fudd, 18 points, and the threes haven't even started falling yet. So
yeah, she did other things,
which
we hadn't seen her do a whole lot. So she got to the basket a bunch. She looked strong and quick. Yeah. Frankly, they need it because right now, it can't be, if you're looking at, they play Notre Dame. They have a tough stretch coming up. They play Louisville, they play Iowa State, they play Notre Dame, they'll play South Carolina in February. It can't be Paige Beckers, Sarah Strong, and everyone else.
Yeah, exactly.
They need more scoring.
Yeah, exactly. And if they had Fudd, that's a huge step in the right direction. If she's going to start putting up 15, 18 points a game, like that's that. And then Sarah Strong, I think, is maybe enough against some of these tough teams. We're going to know a lot about the Huskies when we get to December 21st. They're going to have played, like you said, Louisville. They're going to have played Iowa State. They're going to have played Notre Dame, and they're going to have played USC. We'll know a lot more about the Huskies 3 weeks from now.
Yes, I will say, need some semblance of offense from Ashlyn Shade or KK Arnold. I've liked what I've seen in every way except for scoring from El Alfie and Ice Brady.
Agreed.
Just need more points. I think that's the biggest bugaboo. If Beckers hasn't really had an off game shooting wise this year, she had a bunch of turnovers on Wednesday.
Yeah.
But if she does, what is UConn going to do? Because right now, and maybe the answer is AZ Fudd right now, but before Wednesday, I didn't know what that answer was.
Yeah, agreed. And I do think Sarah Strong's been really solid too. She had a rough second half against Ole Miss, but we've seen her be pretty consistently really good for this team too.
Ole Miss impressed me.
Yeah.
I mean, on the flip side.
Yeah, to come back from that, like to not just be like, well, this is over. Like to come back and fight back and get that game close. I was impressed.
Need them to take the next step and get one of these. Yeah. Eventually. They'll have a lot of chances in SEC play, but if they're one of those teams that they're going to be ranked in the top 25, they'll be an at-large team. Mm-hmm. That goes without saying, but close loss to USC. Made it a game against UConn. They play Texas, Oklahoma, Kentucky, South Carolina, LSU, all of them once. Go get someone.
Mm-hmm.
Just go get someone. They're good enough to. I just need to see
I think they'll get someone in SEC play. I feel like when you get into conference play too, the teams just know each other better. Like it's easier in a way to get someone.
Sure. Anything else from the week? We got a lot to preview, so we can just jump right to that.
Yeah.
Starts today. TCU Notre Dame in the Cayman Islands Classic. We'll find out how real the Horned Frogs are. NC State, they beat them. They're a fraud. Nice win. That's not going to be a top 15 nice win. Maybe not even top 25 nice win sooner or later. We'll find out if Haley Van Lith can handle the ball pressure and not turn the ball over. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, this one should be fun. And like you said, we're going to know a lot more about TCU once this is over.
Irish withstood the inside presence that USC offers. Well, the ball's going to get to Sedona Prince a lot more than it did inside against USC. So we'll find out if they can handle it. I think that's one thing that Notre Dame hasn't seen. Or maybe we did see it and they just took it away from USC. I'm not smart enough to know that. But Sedona Prince is the best big they will have seen to this point.
Yeah, agreed. And probably the best big they're going to see. Next week, that's a lie. They're going to play Texas in like a couple weeks.
Notre Dame is in midst of a stretch. Let me pull it up here.
Yeah.
Brutal. Played USC in California. They're in the Cayman Islands to play TCU. They'll play Utah Saturday. Then Texas. So then 4 games you're playing 3 top 20 teams and a team that's probably NCAA tournament good. Then you head to Syracuse, and then you host UConn on December 12th.
Yeah.
So you're playing 4 top 20 teams and 3 top 5 teams in a 4 weeks, 6-game stretch.
Yeah, I think the number 1 spot is UCLA's probably till they lose, but like if Notre Dame at the end of that stretch is still undefeated, there's a very good argument for Notre Dame to be the number 1 team in the country.
Oh, they'll absolutely have the best resume of anyone in the country. I will say, saw a lot of discourse this week about not even the top 20, the AP poll, just people's rankings in general, your various outlets, your various media folks. It does not matter. It literally, it means nothing. You think Notre Dame should be the number 1 team in the country? Great. The Irish might be.
Yeah.
If you think South Carolina's still the number 1 team, they probably aren't. It doesn't matter. If you're mad that UConn didn't move up to number 1 because they were number 2, it doesn't matter.
Right.
No one's hanging a banner in Stores, Connecticut if they were ranked number 1 in November of 2024.
No one cares.
No one cares.
Yeah.
Yeah. That bothered me. Okay. Sort of MTEs this weekend. Midweek, there's not much out there. Calms down a little bit Monday, Tuesday. ACC SEC Challenge starts Wednesday. There's only one real game on Wednesday. Louisville, Oklahoma. I think the Cardinals need a showing. Mm-hmm. They have Oklahoma, UConn, Grambling, and NC State in the next 4 games. They're already 5-2. Very tough schedule. But if you're 6-5 after 11 games, I just want to see some confidence. They kind of like Ole Miss. They've been close. They just need to go get one.
Yeah. Yeah, this is, I feel like, I don't know, a good matchup. You got an Oklahoma team that's going to be trying to come back from that loss to Duke. We've got a Louisville team, like you said, that needs one. This feels like pretty evenly matched. Like these are probably 2 top 15, top 20 teams. Like I'm not convinced that either of these teams are top 10 teams by any stretch of the imagination, but like they're going to be in the top 25 all season. They're good.
This is a stoppable force meets movable object. Louisville hasn't shot the ball well against good competition. And Oklahoma's defense, I don't think is very good.
Yeah.
Which one is better? We'll find out. I'm going to pick Oklahoma in this one. Where's that game? Is that game in Louisville? Let me pull it up. The joys of live podcasting. You can wait 1 minute, people. That game is in Louisville. I will still take Oklahoma. That's a 5:00 Eastern tip from the KFCM Center.
Yeah.
Thursday. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games written down from the ACC SEC Challenge. We'll start with UNC and Kentucky. North Carolina, was the battle for Atlantis a mirage? Or was it for real? Because they not only won impressively, Ball State's a fine team, Villanova's not very good, Indiana, the jury's out. Well, they didn't, neither the Wildcats or the Who cracked 40. I don't care who you're playing. That's impressive. Is it for real? We'll find out against Kentucky.
Yeah.
You hear me?
Yeah, it broke up for a second, but now I do.
Okay. We're good. The joys of technology. Can the Heels keep up? And on top of the defense, we know the defense is very good. They shot the heck out of the ball against the Hoosiers. That was nice to see.
Yeah, we haven't seen that from this UNC team in a while, so I do think that was positive to see. This is another. I feel like all these games feel like they're just good matchups, like the teams you would want to see against each other that are going to kind of be somewhat evenly matched to an extent, and we're going to kind of learn a little bit more about them.
I will say Kentucky, I said this last week, I'll repeat it, a lot better than I thought they'd be.
Mhm.
They beat the heck out of Illinois the other day. And if they beat UNC, you're looking at being undefeated until the end of January when they play Alabama, at Oklahoma, at Ole Miss, home to Texas consecutively. But this is going much faster than I thought it would in year one under Kenny Brooks.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, Georgia Amor has a lot of credit for that and just some of the pieces they have brought over from Virginia Tech. But they've had some other players step up too. I think it's looked very good.
And they got some minutes off the bench, which I said last week was a concern that they just don't have the depth.
Mm-hmm.
But they had double-digit minutes for multiple players off the bench. Mind you, they beat Illinois by 23, so that helps. But
yeah.
Those minutes that Georgia Amor and Clara Straka was great, and Tioni Key and all these players don't have to play. Who you got? I got Kentucky.
I think I'm going to go UNC here. I don't know. It still feels like Kentucky probably has to come crashing down a little bit at some point. Like, they've got good pieces, but they don't have great pieces. And I think UNC might just have a little bit of a talent edge here.
Well, that's 5 o'clock from Carmichael on Thursday. NC State, Ole Miss. I'm close to out on the Wolfpack. If you didn't guess by me just ripping on them for the last 2 weeks. But this is one of those quote-unquote marquee games. If the Rebels don't get this one, I might be out on them. I think all the signs point to them winning this game. They're tougher. They're better inside. They should be able to bully the pack. They have a scorer that can keep up with some of those NC State guards. I'd be very concerned if Ole Miss doesn't win, in fact.
Yeah, this one feels like it should be Ole Miss. It's absolutely like this isn't, I don't think, going to look like a big one the way NC State's been right now come March, but it's still a good win, and I think it's one that Ole Miss needs.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to win 76-36 like South Carolina did yesterday. No. I think they should win 8-10 points, probably close throughout. And yeah, they'll finally get some semblance of what right now I think would be a top 25 win. We'll see the polls on Monday. LSU Stanford, second test for the Tigers. It's at home. Will they play for 40 minutes? They've been so just mercurial, to say the least, where they'll struggle with Washington and then they'll score 35 points in a quarter and run away. They'll get a better test in the post than NC State did. I know that with Stanford.
Yeah, I agree. This is one that shouldn't be close, but the way that LSU's been playing, it could be close. I would like to see LSU kind of find some form of consistency. I feel like it shouldn't be as disjointed as it has been. So I'd like to see them kind of run a little bit with what they did in their last game and not duplicate what they did against Washington, but we'll see.
Let Anissa cook. Let Flau'jae cook. Let Michaela Williams cook. If the Cardinal were to win, obviously it's huge. If they keep it close, I'll probably hold my opinion on that's probably where they are. A good team, just not in that upper echelon. If they get blown out, I think there'd be flashing warning signs of that Gonzaga win. That early season looking good was a mirage more than a reality.
Yeah.
You pick LSU?
Yeah.
I think they'll win by 8 or 9. I think the Cardinal keep it close. And our opinions on them, at least my opinion on them, where they are, probably rings true. All right, the big ones. Thursday. Gamecocks, they looked vulnerable, and then they did what they did to Iowa State. Can Duke get them?
Yeah, I think we learn more about Duke in this game than we do about South Carolina. I think South Carolina is going to be very good regardless of what happens in this game. Like I said, I think there's a couple things they need to work on. I think they're going to be fine. I think this Duke team, though, we've seen them get some really solid wins. How they hang around in this game is going to tell me a lot more about just how good they are. Can they get South Carolina? I don't know. I'd be hard pressed to pick South Carolina to lose 2 games in the span of a week and a half. So I'm not going to pick them to get South Carolina. Could they? Maybe. But I just regardless think we're going to learn a lot about this Duke team.
Going for Duke, they have the size to keep it close with the Gamecocks in the paint. Delaney Thomas is 6'3". Jordan Wood off the bench is 6'4". She had a nice game against Oklahoma. Toby Fournier is 6'2". Obviously, we know about Reagan Richardson and Ashlyn Jackson. All the pieces are there, and they're brimming with confidence. The going against Duke is take nothing away. You beat 2 top 10 teams in Kansas State and Oklahoma. There's a difference between doing that in front of friends and family, a couple thousand in Vegas, versus going to Colonial Life, where South Carolina hasn't lost, and going on 4 years, 60 straight games. And those post players I mentioned, Thomas, Wood, they're sophomores. Fournier is a freshman. That's the big difference.
Place to win. Yeah, it's a hard place to win.
Yes. So even if they kind of like I just said with Stanford, if they're able to keep it close, I think there are no moral victories. I can give you a moral victory. Kara Lawson can. Yeah. She's paid to not give moral victories. I would give Duke a big moral victory if they go in and give South Carolina all it can handle. I'll take the Gamecocks. Yeah. But I think it's going to be closer than – I don't think it's going to be a blowout.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to take South Carolina. You're not going to bet against South Carolina at home. But at the same time, I agree. Like, if Duke keeps this really close, it is a moral victory, as much as people aren't going to want to say that. Like, that's going to firm up that Duke is a top 10, maybe even better than that team.
Yeah, if you leave – they have a tough one against Columbia. Don't look past Columbia.
Yeah.
On Sunday. But if they leave Colonial Life and head into ACC play against Virginia Tech at, what are they? 7-1, so 8-1, 8-2 with losses at Maryland, at South Carolina, and a couple of top 10 wins and a win over South Dakota State on the road. We talked about the Jackrabbits. That'll age nicely. Nothing to complain about if you're a political fan. All right.
Exactly.
Big one Thursday. South Bend, Notre Dame, Texas. We talked about, we've seen Notre Dame pass a test with flying colors. This is our first chance to see Texas. All due respect to SEMO, Lamar, DePaul, Tarleton, and New Mexico State. First time we're going to see the Longhorns this year.
Yeah, and I feel like we haven't really talked about Texas, and it's just because they haven't really played anyone to make them worth talking about since the season started. But like, this is a team that we've all talked about being in that kind of top tier of teams going into the season. So I'm really interested to see them against the Notre Dame and to see them get tested and see what they look like. To me, this is like the highlight matchup of Thursday because we haven't seen Texas. We know how good Notre Dame is. Like, we're going to learn a lot about this Texas team.
You can go down the rosters and like you have a player for player, Miles, Harmon, Hidalgo, Booker, Citron, Felia, Kate Koval, Taylor Jones. I forgot Aaliyah Moore. This is about really as even a matchup on paper as I can think that we've had so far this year.
Yeah. I think Notre Dame benefits here from they've played some people, so they're a little bit more prepared for this. I think Texas, like, you haven't played anything like this yet, so this is going to be a tough game to be that first. Like, they haven't even played a top 25 team, right? Like, someone in the 20s to like
they haven't played a tournament
get warmed up. Yeah, a tournament team to get like warmed up against. No offense to the other teams, but like a team with like a polls. So this is tough to come into. There's a world where like Notre Dame just like opens up the first quarter on a big run and like that's the game. I do think Texas fights back if that happens, but I just think that this is really tough to come into and have be your first game that is any semblance of real competition.
I think the key is who can take care of the ball. Again, they're very similar. Texas turns it over 14 times a game, Notre Dame 15. Longhorns averaging 16 steals a game, Notre Dame 13. Texas early on, rebounding nearly half its misses offensively. Notre Dame is allowing offensive rebounds at half that rate. Can the Irish keep the Longhorns off the glass? I think USC I thought would be a bigger test. This might be an even bigger test in the front court to see how well they can rebound. I know it's in South Bend, and all your points that you made are valid. Take the Longhorns. I think the travel is going to catch up to Notre Dame. They traveled 2,100 miles to LA. I assume they didn't go back home. They probably, if they flew back home, that's another 2,100 miles. If they went right to the Cayman Islands from LA, that's 2,500 miles. And then they're flying 1,600 miles back. That's over that's 7,000 miles in a week and a half. It's a lot of travel. A lot of travel. And I think that might wear on them. So I will, can't call it an upset, top 5 matchup. My upset would be Texas.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it an upset either, but yeah, agreed. It technically by the numbers would be an upset.
Yes. Well, I didn't write these down, and we didn't put anything on the line. So I don't know. I don't remember who you picked versus who I picked, but we can go see, and someone can fact check us on Twitter or Blue Sky. Are you skeeting yet?
I need to get over there. It's like
it's called a skeet. Did you know that?
No,
it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Then again,
I feel like we've had a lot of these things like since like Elon took over Twitter, where there's like some new platform that everyone goes to for like 3 weeks and then it disappears.
This one, I think, it's the Jack dude who made Twitter, but don't need to call it a skeet dude. Now, people in 2006, 2007 probably were like, it's called a tweet. That's stupid.
Yeah.
And now it's just commonplace, but skeet.
Yeah.
Window to the wall. Yeah. That's all I got. The ACC SEC challenge is the biggest games of the week. Outside of that, not a whole lot's going on unless someone gets upset. So next week we'll recap a heavy Thursday night. We'll get you set for next weekend. Megan, do some Black Friday shopping.
Yes. Yeah. Gotta go sit on my couch and do that.
Sounds good. Everyone will talk to you next week.